Hello and welcome to today's Fat Tail Daily video. Today I am joined by Brian Chew from sunny Sydney. Welcome, Brian.
Hey Woody, how are you going?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm certainly going. Today you're focusing on the commodities sector, which is something we're kind of focusing on all week here at Fat Tail. What's your take on it?
Okay, so it seems like for many people, since since we've opened up, we're seeing significant developments. I can talk about that from for myself in Sydney, where my parents live. We actually went to a wedding early this month, and we noticed how much the trains have changed. Like the train lines and the public transport system is still inefficient, but like it's just there's a wider spread to it. Now, what that actually spurred me to think about was that as governments are now changing in many Western countries from more foreign, they look at, they want to do this whole, uh, the world is one big community and we're going to help out other countries at the expense of our own. More countries are actually voting in governments that are looking after themselves. There is a significant building boom in certain countries, which I expect to be happening, and so that's going to spark a commodity super cycle, which is different to that which we had seen in the last decade, which was largely China driven when all these Western countries look for cheaper source of cheaper labor. Businesses went therefore and basically produced and manufactured in China. And then we relied on Chinese imports and also a few other countries. So this time I think it's different, but what remains the same is the reliance on resources and also the mining companies and mining services companies that will benefit from this particular super cycle.
You say it's a cycle that will rhyme but not repeat.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the key differences that you see and how investors might position themselves differently this time?
Yep. So most people, if they still remember in the subprime crisis, one of the key reasons, I would say almost the only reason why Australia managed to escape the economic carnage that many Western nations experienced was because the Howard government and then the Rudd government made many trade deals with China and businesses, and we did have a lot of Australian businesses which moved offshore over and set themselves up in China. Costs fell, like the labor costs are lower over there. So as a result, more of these companies that moved to China and other countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Latin America later down the track, they generated greater profits, but the Western nations, they had to do a lot of importing. So this commodity super cycle was driven by China being the powerhouse and Australia, Brazil, and South Africa and all these resource-rich nations exported their natural resources over to China and any other countries that manufactured and brought back and imported back the materials. Now, this time round, I believe there is another super cycle coming. The commodities are going to be in huge demand. But what's different this time is that I think China won't be the only country that all these everywhere else are going to rely on, but instead there could be Western nations slowly bringing back manufacturing, bringing back production into their countries, and the resource-rich nations are also going to do similar. And instead of just exporting natural resources, there would still be exports, but there would be more. It'll be a more balanced type of supply chain where the countries are not relying on certain countries to do all the manufacturing. There's going to be a bit more self-sufficiency going forward.
Another thing you highlight is mining services companies as a potentially overlooked way to play the coming resources
Mm.
commodities boom cycle. What advantages do you see in these companies versus direct mining plays?
Yep, that's a really good question because for certain, what are mining services companies? I might unpack this.
Hmm.
These are companies which hire staff. They purchase capital equipment, so bulldozers, trucks, and heavy duty equipment, and they would contract it out to mining companies, and also in some cases, also as you see with a lot of road repairs and all that, you have these contracting companies that actually provide the teams of contractors as well as provide the equipment. Now, a lot of mining companies they don't own their fleets of capital equipment simply because it costs a lot, and sometimes they might lay idle, especially because the commodity cycle varies quite a bit. So, smaller companies would engage these mining services companies for contract staff as well as renting equipment. Now, why could there be an advantage in investing also in this sector rather in these industries rather than just the mining sector is, as we know, mining companies don't pay very generous dividends. They also are very volatile because of the commodity cycle. Mining services companies, they are still quite a volatile industry because they are also tied to the commodities boom. But the difference here is these companies have more flexible capital and they have a good track record, at least the good companies, they pay much more generous dividends. So mining companies might the larger mining companies may pay 2 to 3% dividend yield. Mining services companies could well pay 6 or 7% dividend yield, and that's before franking. So you might actually receive about as much as 9 or 10% dividends after accounting for franking credits. So
Mm.
the this can be quite attractive to investors who want a bit more of a stable income stream.
Mm. Um, One of the theses you talk about, so the thesis of the country is becoming more self-sufficient. That's what you talk about, how that
Hmm.
could sort of reshape global supply chains. Beyond the obvious mining sectors, what secondary industries do you see benefiting from sort of this transformation?
Ooh, this one is comes out of slightly left field, but now when you
On my
think
best.
about that, well, I think I can still handle this pretty all right. So let me take a step back and explain my reasoning for why I believe that countries are going to adopt a more onshoring policy, as in bringing back domestic production, is because since the lockdowns we've experienced in 2020 to as late as 2023 for some countries, we saw how fragile the supply chain became. That reliance on imports and exports during a time when borders are locked down, countries are facing significant um, undersupply of essential goods. We had shortages in shops. We had massive delays in new cars and new equipment. So many many people realized that this whole idea of um, looking for the cheapest goods being manufactured in the places where labor is cheap, that is not sustainable. Now, governments have faced this problem, and there's been changes in governments that have led to more nationalist governments. People want governments that would fight for the citizens' rights and bringing back a stronger economy rather than seeking for a highest profits for businesses. So in Australia, we currently we might actually see a replacement of the Albanese Labor government in the next election. and we could well see a new government, possibly Peter Dutton, who knows whether he would be leading the coalition to the next election. There's a possibility. That might lead to more protectionist policies, echoing what President Trump is going to do with America. So in Australia, I could see that we have a vast source of mineral wealth, as well as fossil fuels and uranium. And who knows whether we may revive the fossil fuels industry here, not cutting down coal-fired power plants or gas-fired power plants, but who knows, there might be nuclear. What else could benefit? Australian-made goods, agricultural goods, I think would benefit, not just exporting it out. And we might finally see some form of revival in the clothing industry being made in Australia, maybe shoes or certain small goods that rely on Australian produce, not very high tech, but we can see that hopefully reviving. And these are the types of things that could play out in the longer term as countries realize that they need to be more self-sufficient, manufacture within the country, do some trades with neighboring countries rather than looking for hubs of production spread internationally.
Cool. We'll leave it there, Brian. If people want to read your original piece, the link is in the description below. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Head on over to our website. That's where you'll see his piece. Any closing remarks, Brian?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying can be quite speculative in nature. It will be look forward to seeing in 12 months' time, 3 years' time, how well this video aged. And once again, thanks for everyone's support, and God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to Fat Tail Daily. If you're ready to take a new approach to building wealth, avoiding the same old mainstream ideas and investigating new market trends, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a single video. And as a thank you, we've got a free report just for you. It is packed with actionable insights that show you how to capitalize on an alternative investment idea that you'll unlikely find anywhere else. You can download it right now by clicking on the link in the description below. So, if you're ready to discover strategies that the traditional market just doesn't offer, grab your free report. Until next time.